SME, which is why I said we have a big problem. It wasn't just the 220 billion. They had other initiatives that were running at the same time with the 220 billion. And at the point of thinking out that program, working out the guideline, I did say then that, look, this guideline will not support MSMEs. Why won't you support MSMEs? You're asking for 75% bank guarantee. Where will I get that from? If I have 75% of the fund I'm looking for, I'll go invest with it. Secondly, we had a one-size-fits-all approach to finance. We still have that one-size-fits-all approach where we launched one guideline for every business enterprise. So a guy who's into tomato farming or another person who's into fashion design, we're all struggling to fit into that guideline. That was a bigger problem with this 220 billion MSME funding. One size fits all, one guideline for every kind of enterprise. So I am struggling. My business does a turnaround in 8-9 months. I plant here, I have to wait for 6-7 months. And somebody who is into fashion design, we're all struggling to fit into that guideline. And you see also the problem of coordination. We're not yet coordinating among agencies, even within agencies in the same ministries are not coordinating. Because if they are coordinating, CBN would have said, okay, we have this 220 billion MSME funding. The guideline will not come from us. We'll look, trade and investment, help us develop a guideline that would best work for MSMEs. And we're going to provide this funding for them. But when CBN launched the funding and was managing the guideline, it did not manage a guideline that was realistic to MSMEs. MSMEs could not fit into the guideline. And also, like I did talk about the NEDEP program, which was launched with the NIRP at the same time in 2014. NEDEP was meant to galvanize applications from MSMEs and move them to BOI, which was the initial plan. And the launch of NEDEP, BOI issued a joint statement with Smith and saying it would create 3.5 million jobs as at that by 1 year after in 2015. Only for us to get the NEDEP Part 1 report in 2016 saying that BOI backed out from funding the enterprises, saying that the act establishing it does not allow it to fund those kind of businesses. And the question we ask simply is this. The act establishing BOI, when did it come into law? Was it before we launched NEDEP or after we had launched NEDEP? And clearly it was before we launched NEDEP. So BOI should have seen that it was not going to be able to finance these applications. So why did we go ahead and launch NEDEP and 2 years after NEDEP is not working, NIRP is not working? So the problem here is that it seems as if most of these initiatives are not really thought out to support MSMEs in Nigeria, because if they're going to support MSMEs, the guideline at the point of developing it, MSMEs should make input. I should be able to tell you that, look, no, I cannot provide this kind of collateral you're asking me of. I cannot work within this same model. Let's work out something that will both work for everybody.
Celestine, we've seen in the last 1-2 administrations and the current one, some initiatives also at well, maybe not really as MSMEs, but getting to folks at the grassroots. You talk about the tomato seller and the vulcanizer and a fashion designer, a hairdresser, when it comes to the You-Win program. Now, the current Buhari's administration has his own brand name for such a program and what have you. Are all these well embedded, well coordinated into what you call a turnaround for small and medium enterprises in Nigeria, in an economy where informal economy is about 80–85% of the entire GDP?
Basically, for us, like I said, the issue of coordination is a big challenge for us. And let me try and emphasize on that a little more. When you have agencies under the same ministry launching out intervention for MSMEs and they are not really talking to each other, they are not coordinating within each other to say, look, how do we work out something that works for MSME? How do we bring out something that works for MSME? It becomes a problem. So in the last 2 years, for instance, we've had different programs that have come in. And at the point of conceptualizing this program, nobody was consulted in the terms of people who need to make input into this program. And when you then launch the programs, it becomes a big challenge. I'll tell you something. When we had the You-Win program, Youth Enterprise with Innovation in Nigeria program, it was launched in 2012. And the biggest two challenges You-Win had at inception, which we shouted and said so much about it in 2012, is You-Win was run basically as a competition. It was basically as a competition. I sit down somewhere, I download fantastic business idea, do 1 or 2 editing and submit, and I get my money. And You-Win 1 and You-Win 2, there was no physical interview. Nobody interviewed anybody at the final stage. So we could not even put a face to those who were making the application. Such that when they eventually got the fund, you discover that most of the people who got the fund were only front for people who were writing the business plan. And one other challenge they have is, the hard was this. Our government wanted to put our figures of that we have created jobs from UWIN. We've created 1,000, 5,000, 6,000 jobs from UWIN. And what they simply did was to say, look, for every award winner, before we give you a second or your final tranche disbursement, we need you to employ 4 or 5 persons or 2 persons, depending on the size of the business. And we told them this. I was a mentor on the program, and look, it's not going to work. When these guys wrote their business plans for you, they had a projection that they had worked out. And this projection may not have included employing staff in the first 2-3 months of their starting up. So when you ask them to carry this cost component into their business, you are not taking into consideration the fact that this might begin to eat deep into their finances. And government said, no, they need to employ these persons, else we will not give them their second or final tranche. And these guys employed. So what they simply did was they employed, got their final tranche, and sacked this guy they were forced to employ. So the problem for us is not that the funding has not been produced provided by government, but the process for providing this funding, the input that need to be made by MSMEs are not taken into consideration. So when you eventually launch these programs, it becomes difficult. And I did say something here. The Youth Entrepreneurship Support Program was launched in 2014 or 2015 by Goodluck before he left office. And they came out and said, oh, if you are a graduate and you have your youth certificate, your NYSC certificate, discharge certificate, that is enough for you to take an assessment.
Celestine.
The loan. But that wasn't the truth.
Celestine, we need to take a break. When we come back, you got to finish off from where you are, what you're saying. Then we get to the executive orders. Then we got to the new laws on credit for MSMEs. Then we'll see what the roadmap for agriculture and industrializations are fitting to the entire conversation. We're back into everyone. Don't go anywhere. Celestine Okeke, our guest from Abuja Studios, who is the lead partner at MSME Advocacy Support Initiative. My personal apologies and the rest of us for mixing up your surname there early in the part of the program. Celestine Okeke, thank you very much for being there for us. Let's continue this conversation regarding what's the tail end of the Jonathan's administration and the initiative that was launched. Then we can go into what you can call the blue ocean of the Buhari's administration as far as the MSME is concerned. Shoot.
So basically, the process of transiting from the Goodluck administration to the Buhari government was not a smooth one for MSMEs, because most of the programs they carried over from the initiative from the administration of Goodluck into the new government were not properly analyzed. And I remember when this government came into power, I wrote a personal letter from my organization to the Minister of Finance, and I said, look, we need to do a review. We need to do a holistic review of what we did with UWIN, so we can learn from the mistakes that we had under the UWIN program. And I told the Minister of Agri that, look, we need to review the way you want to finance and support agri development in Nigeria, because several things were being done wrong. Things were not happening. And there was no response to the letters, and we felt, okay, let's see what they're going to come up with. So when in August 2016, the Minister of Trade and Investment said they are going to kickstart the NIRP, I said, look, of course, we wrote them back and said, look, are you kickstarting the NIRP and leaving out the NEDEP component of the program? Because what was launched in 2014 was NEDEP and NIRP, not just NIRP. NEDEP spoke more to the big guys. The NIRP spoke to the big guys. NEDEP spoke to MSMEs. How can we make sure that the problem we had in 2015 when trying to implement NEDEP is overcome going forward? We didn't get any response. So when I now hear that we have an economic recovery and growth plan that wants to rely on the NIRP for its success, I begin to ask the question, when did we decide to use NIRP as a pillar to support the ERGP? At that point of making that decision, do we try to look at what has happened with NIRP? We didn't do that. And I keep saying something everywhere and anywhere I go. There's a big distinction between the minister who heads the ministry and the guys who manage the ministry. So I don't take to heart too much what a minister says, because I go back and look at what is the capacity of the guys in the ministry to implement these policies. And this capacity is the biggest problem we have in Nigeria. So you have a ministry that has 6-7 agencies that are meant to support MSMEs, like Ministry of Trade and Investment. And you ask the ministry, when last did you undertake a review of what your agencies have been doing to support MSMEs? When last did you ask them to present to you their plans? There is no response. And we'll go ahead to review their plans and programs. We'll ask and we'll get for the 2011 and 2015. And you see a total disconnect between what they were doing and the national policies we had at that